Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at My Expat Taxes. For my fellow Americans out there, we all know tax season is upon us, and for anyone who's ever had the pleasure of dealing with multiple tax agencies in multiple countries, you know this can be a challenging experience. That's why when it comes to dealing with anything tax-related abroad, I always recommend hiring a pro to help you navigate this unknown space. In my experience, this not only saves you time and spares you from the unnecessary headaches, it also has literally saved me thousands of dollars in taxes over the years. So I am super excited to introduce you to My Expat Taxes, a true pro in this space that focuses 100% on U.S. expat taxes. Whether you're filing for 2023, catching up on back taxes, predicting a future tax obligation for a future move abroad, or just looking for some guidance, My Expat Taxes has your back with speedy and affordable online filing options and real human accountants to assist you as needed. Join the more than 16,000 other Americans living abroad who have used their services by visiting myexpattaxes.com via the link in the show notes. My guest today is my good friend Shawna, who, like me, left the United States 7 years ago to follow her dream to live abroad in Spain, and has since gone on to become one of the leaders in this space, helping other Americans move abroad permanently, not just to Spain, to various other countries throughout Europe and Latin America, which we get into today. But more importantly, I think what I took away from this conversation is that if there is a will, there is absolutely a way. There has never been a better time to try and move abroad. If that is your desire, then we probably have some answers for you in this conversation today. We also talk about some of the ups and downs of moving abroad, some of the sacrifices that you might have to make, and some of the realities that aren't as sexy, but very practical and need to be discussed. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Shawna is full of energy and a ton of knowledge about moving abroad. She's also shared some special offers for her coaching and courses that we'll get to throughout this conversation. So stick around and please help me in welcoming Shawna to About Abroad. Yeah, I think you actually bring up like a really good point about some of the actual struggles of like when you're living abroad, and the fact that you do have these weights or these push-pull factors that bring you back to wherever it is that you're, actually from. And I mean, I know your case is like a very, very extreme case, I guess, that not everyone has to go through, but I love that you share that, about your personal story and like what happened with your dad and what took you from living your dream life abroad to like coming back to the US. And so I find all that like very relatable, and I'm glad that you share that kind of stuff in your content.
Oh, yeah. And thanks for bringing it up. I want to bring something up here. So I know you said it's probably not going to happen to people, but it actually will, because wherever our ties are back in, let's say our country is the US, like the horrible reality is, yes, death happens. And so let me just tell you guys what happened to me. I was basically living for 5 years in Barcelona, met my husband, Dan, which you definitely are going to meet him soon, Chase.
Can't wait. Looking forward to that.
Yes. So basically we were living our dream life. I was doing my web design agency, working remote, working with American clients. Like our life was set. It's during COVID, and my family is reaching out to me and they're like, "Hey, you need to come over here and see what's going on with your dad. Like he won't put down the cigarettes. He's not okay. He's losing a lot of weight. Like we need you to come back and like scope the situation out." And I was like, "Okay." And I just kept getting these like cries for help from like family members, like, "Hey, he's not doing good." So I listened to my intuition, and this was during the time when, it was scary to fly back. People were scared to go on the plane because of COVID. And so I listened to that intuition, went home. My dad had gotten a biopsy like while I was basically flying back, and the results came back and he had stage 4 lung cancer. So basically, I went back to take care of him for a month. He lasted a month. Like my goal was to try to get him healed, and he was doing his treatments and all radiation and everything, but he passed away like literally a month after. I was just supposed to be there for a couple months to like help him out and hopefully get him back on track, but it was just too far. Basically that like uprooted our entire life because we're living our life in Barcelona. Everything's fine and dandy, and then dad doesn't have his affairs in order. He didn't have a living trust. He didn't have a will. So only child Shawna here goes over there, to take care of him. But then I get left with all of that junk, and it gets really messy. And so, yeah, this whole living abroad thing, like it's wonderful, but it's just like if somebody, I like to say it like this, like if you decided to move to New York and you're from LA, it's the same thing. Your parents are still back in LA or wherever your hometown is. And at one point, yes, they are going to get older and you will have to make decisions with the family on what you get to do. Do you have brothers and sisters that are going to take turns? Like, or are you going to put them in a home? Like, none of these, whatever you decide is good. But there are rough times and there's no escaping it. And but I still don't think that this should deter people. The fear of like what's going to happen to your parents. And I hear this all the time. My best friend who lives in LA, she just wants to move to another city. She's thought about moving to Oregon because that's more of her vibe. She goes, I can't leave my mom. And I respect that. But at the same time, if you feel this call to like do this thing, you're not going to have another time. And what would your parent want you to do? And when I think about like, what would my dad really want me to do? He loved that I was living my life in Spain. Like they want you to go live your life. And you can always like pause life over there and come back and take care of the things that need to get taken care of. So basically, I think Chase, but so everybody else can know, I've been staying in America for the last couple years to take care of the whole probate situation. But also we said, hey, let's like make a lot of money here. We still have our place in Barcelona. We still go back and forth, but we're like, let's just stay here for 5 years. We're getting Dan's American passport. Let's like turn this negative thing into like a positive. But the thing that's really hard is, and I think you've had experience with this, is going back into the American society. It's not easy. When you've basically been Spanishified, or what's the word? Europified.
Europeanized.
Europeanized. Thank you. I like Europified because it sounds weirder.
I like that too. Actually, I'm adopting that and Spanishized as well.
Spanish, why not? So like after I think a couple years, you actually take on like your habits. So it goes like this. Your thoughts change your beliefs change your habits change your behavior, and then your behavior changes your personality. And all of that changes when you live abroad. And so like after a couple years, you can have a totally different personality. Your personality that you had when you were living in the States is totally different now because you live in Spain or you live in Italy or wherever it is, right? And I'm wondering if you had that experience too.
Absolutely. Have you ever heard that like even on a cellular level, every 7 years, like you shed all your cells, you actually are essentially a totally different person every seven years. And I think that's like, that's on a cellular physical level, but the mental level that you talked about, like, yeah, in a couple years, you can kind of become a different person. And so if you're not cognizant of that, it can actually be a little bit scary when you like reinsert yourself as you've done, like back into society where you're from, and you feel a little bit lost. You're like, wait a second, like, do I still align with these things that I used to do, or these thoughts that I used to have, or these behaviors that I used to exhibit? I don't know that I do anymore. And you kind of lose a little bit of yourself in that. And it's a little bit perplexing at first. And the thing that you're alluding to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is this like, in particular, I feel like for us as Americans moving to, let's just use Europe as an example, because that's been our case for both of us. And then coming back, when you do get Europeanized and you get thrown back into the hustle culture of America, that'll really throw you for a loop. Like that'll really mess with your head. And because for me, I want to hear if this is the same for you. For me, I go from Spain, I go from living in Spain and living the laid back, relaxed Spanish lifestyle. I take my job, I take everything, my whole life, and I go back to the US. Everything is in theory exactly the same, but I work longer hours. I'm a bit more stressed out. I cram way more into my days. And I'm like, all that changed was my location. Nobody's putting any more pressure on me except for me. And that's wild.
It's all inside. Like, and I've been doing a lot of reading on like the Buddhist philosophies and these different like schools of thought. And I'm a big, I know we push, hey, living abroad is this great thing. I do believe that it changes your life. But honestly, the only thing that's changing is like your inside. You know, you're in control of how you move through the world, your experience. If you're waking up with gratitude, like it's not the place dictating that, it's you. But it is interesting that, and I agree, like here in America, I will tell you, because we've come back, I've started 2 more businesses. Yes, a lot more stress. Why have I done that? I think I have more time on my hands. I'm by myself more. So here, and I'm saying here because I'm calling you from LA right now. Here, now reverse culture shock. I've like tried to hang out with people like during the week. People don't want to hang out. Like this whole community aspect that is so strong in Europe and Latin America, it's so hard to hang out with Americans because everybody's so busy. They're getting booked out for 2 weeks in advance. So it just leaves us with like so much time on our hands. And we end up being these like little individual robots roaming around. You know, we go to the gym, which I love doing. And like I go to hot yoga because it's a group and I like the community aspect. But sometimes it is really hard to even see your best friends. You try 2, 3, 4 times and then you know, you will find people, of course, that will wanna hang out, but it's like pulling teeth to try to, like, connect with people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you get used to the Spanish lifestyle of, several hour lunches, people go out very often. Even just for like when we say go out, people automatically kind of associate that with like drinking or partying in a way. And like, I don't mean that necessarily. I mean more like, after work, it's very normal to have like some social activity almost every day. And I'll never forget, actually, this epitomizes it for me when I first arrived to Spain. Are you familiar with Las Fallas, the festival in Valencia?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody that's not familiar with it, it's like, Spanish Mardi Gras with lots of fire and fireworks for 3 weeks. They say it's 5 days. It's 3 to 4 weeks of festivities. Anyway, every day at lunchtime in Valencia, in the center of Valencia, for 3 weeks, they have this thing called mascleta, which is like a fireworks show that is not really fireworks. It's more like a lot of bombs going off and people get really excited about it. And I'll be honest, I never really got it, but I was like, this is a thing. Like everybody leaves work, they go to the central Plaza Ayuntamiento and they watch the fireworks show. Well, my first day, like I arrived to Valencia when I first moved there, like as all this was unfolding. And and every day, everybody at my co-working would leave for like an hour and a half to go to the mascleta to watch it and maybe have a tapas and a beer or something. And then they would come back to work. And for like my first like 2 weeks there, I wouldn't go with them. Like I was like, I don't have time for this. Like they're taking like an hour and a half, 2 hours in the middle of the day. And I'm like, I have my 1 hour standard lunch break. And then I started thinking about, I'm like, I'm missing out on this experience so much. And like for the next 4 years, like by the time I left Spain a couple years later, like it's standard for me to have a 3 hour lunch break. And I think about that change. Like now I can't stand not having a 3 hour lunch break. But at that time when I first arrived, I'm like 1 hour. If it goes beyond 1 hour, I'm like cheating the system. I can't do that. And so anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying like, yeah, that change happens. And personally, I love the growth and I love the, like seeing how other cultures do things. And I'm currently talking to you from Germany today. And it's like, it's very different here in Germany than it is in Spain and how they approach these things. And just getting to interact with it on a daily basis, like gives me so much life.
Right. And I think there's something about the newness. I interviewed a friend who is he's a true digital nomad. Like I can't do what he does because he's like everywhere every year with his wife. They go to Japan, they go to I met him in Sayulita, Mexico in October, but he said something really interesting, which was like the newness. Like it's a constant educational moment for you, and our brain like craves education and new things and learning. And it's like you being in this new country trying to figure out how to buy bread or where to get your hair cut. I mean, just these little things and the exploration of how to do that. And oh, like, let me just ask this local bakery how I can do it, and then I'm trying to practice my Spanish or my Italian. It's all stimulating to the brain, but it's also like connection. We're putting things together, and I think that that's like what what's so exciting about living in other countries instead of just having the same routine like every single day.
Yeah. I like to say, like, I want to make the mundane an adventure. So, like, going to the grocery store should be an adventure. Like, I get so bored when it's so easy. But, like, if I have to try it in a different language or, like, I don't know how it's going to be set up, like, it's a boring example. But, like, for me, that does add zest to life for sure.
But it also gets you to like appreciate. You're like grateful for this opportunity of going to the grocery store. Why? Because you get to practice your words. You get to, yeah, it's just, I think it's a really good point. And also being the outlier in these countries. I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's actually really humbling, and you grow a lot as a person. You become more confident when everybody's staring at you the second you walk in the metro because you answered your WhatsApp to answer your husband and you're like, "Oh yeah, honey, I'm coming home. I'll see you soon." And everybody turns their head and is just death staring at you. You get used to that and you're like, "Yep, people are staring at me, but I feel cool. I'm calm and collected." And so then your confidence level now increases. Do you get that all the time?
Yeah, actually, you know what's so funny is I found this to be very liberating. What you just said, I found it very like I was a little bit scared of it at first, but I found it very liberating to be because if you're the weirdo foreigner, then you're just weird because you're a foreigner. It's not because you chose to be a little bit different. And so when I first traveled abroad for an extensive period of time, I found like I don't want to say it's definitely overstating it to say like for the first time I felt like I could be myself. That's not the case. But there was an element of that where it was like, huh, maybe I don't have to fit into this box that I've been in. Maybe I can step outside of that. And the reason I feel comfortable doing that is because I'm already weird. I'm already the foreigner who can't speak the language or has to ask like basic questions like a freaking infant. Where's the bus stop? Like, you can't figure that out. You're 30 years old. But there's something to that. And like, and I think it's a bit liberating in a way.
It's very liberating, and I think it's a big personal development, like, exercise. People pay thousands of dollars for leadership, personal development, coaching programs. I can say I've done that. Last year, I paid 5 I'm really big into coaching. So, like, how do I make myself better? I've dropped 5K on a personal development leadership program, and it was amazing. But hey, just go put yourself in another country for 3, 4, 5 months at least. And I think it's the self-acceptance. You learn to shed like, why is this affecting me so much? Well, because since high school, I would say after middle school is when middle school was great. Once you got into high school, at least for me, that's when all the judgments started forming. And we kind of like keep that, we hold on to that. And so we think like, especially growing up in LA, not the best place. If you weren't wearing True Religion jeans, you were not cool. So just think about, like, all of these paradigms and these narratives that have been fed to you for so many years, and you're still believing that I have to dress a certain way, I have to act a certain way, when I walk into this place, or, "Oh, I can't be loud here." I mean, why? Ask yourself why, because then you go to these other places and it's like, the Spanish people are loud. Like, okay. And you start realizing, like, I can just be me. Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah. And most people have fun with it. I used to feel like I had to be like a little bit like an apologist for Americans in a way. I think like, I started traveling abroad during the Bush administration, the invasion of Iraq and And there was a lot of like hatred towards Americans. Like I actually remember accidentally stumbling into an anti-American rally in Vienna and like just realizing I was suddenly in the middle of that. And I was like, they're going to smell me. Like they're going to know I'm American. And, I was just trying not to, but there was a point in my life, I think, I didn't think this consciously. I think about it now, like it was a subconscious kind of thing where I just felt like, oh, I need to like, be wary of the fact that I'm American. And, I don't want to like wear that on my sleeve or whatever while I'm abroad. But like generally, I think some of that has softened. One, some of the like vitriol that may have been there at that time has softened a bit. But also it's like, what I've found is that most people aren't like that. They're not judging you like that. They're actually interested and want to have interesting conversations. And you'll always have the people who want to poke fun at our shitty healthcare system or, gun laws or whatever it may be. But like setting, if you can set those aside or roll your eyes at those or entertain it for a moment and maybe have an interesting conversation, like most people are actually interested in you because you come from a different place and you have a different perspective. And if you're interested in their perspective, then it just creates this like super fun environment to be in because you're like constantly stimulated, constantly learning, interacting with people from other corners of the world. Again, it makes those mundane conversations that I don't want to have with my neighbor in North Carolina a lot more entertaining when you're talking about it with a Frenchman from Paris who sees something totally different. So
Yeah. And I think we're all here to like teach each other something. I mean, you learn things all the time. And I've had both experiences, like you said, some people saying, I would never go to America. I'm scared. I've had that. I've had people in Barcelona at a music festival. I met her in the porta potty area. She goes, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "LA." She goes, "What?" Oh, she was from Morocco and she was living in Barcelona. She was like, it's my dream to go to Hollywood. Why are you here? Why are you even in Europe? Like, we have also people that are super, "Oh my gosh, why would you leave the dream?" It's like, it's really cool to see all of the whole spectrum. But I think there's a lot of fear. Like, people, especially those of you listening, I'd love to know, I'm sure you've experienced this, like you're reading up on news articles and you're in Facebook groups, and I kind of teach my students this a lot. Like, don't believe everything you read, because a lot of these groups, there's a lot of negativity coming out of these groups. Like, I'll just give you an example. I was also an English teacher in Barcelona because when I came in on a student visa, I knew that like I needed to have a backup plan. At that time, you couldn't just go in on a work visa. They didn't have these digital nomad visas in 2015. So I went on a student visa and I did some part-time work, and I also did English teaching on the side. I was in a Facebook group that was called, and you can find this in pretty much any country you want to go to. If you just type in like the city or the country, and then you type in like Barcelona English teachers, or you can type in like English teaching in Spain. And I used to get jobs in there. Like, I'm telling you, like these are like under the table. You can teach an adult English and you just go to their house or you go to their place of work. I had a physical therapist that I would go to his office because he was prepping for this conference. That was like the easiest job I've ever had. 22 euros an hour. Like, it was great. And I got like some free sessions out of it. I found some of these jobs, yes, in the Facebook groups because people are like, "Hey, I can't do this," or "I have this extra work." So it's a great place to network, but be very careful because I noticed that people like to complain a lot. And I don't know, I think you might have noticed this in Spain. I don't think the locals understand how great they have it. I don't think they realize like how great like the systems are set up. People are taken care of. There's not that much homelessness. I mean, the system is pretty good, as much as we say, like a lot of Americans or other countries will say, "Oh, but the taxes are horrible." It's really great. But I think so many people that are living there for so many years, they get into this like complaining mentality. And I think that's something to just like be aware of, notice it, know that people do like to complain in a lot of these Western European countries. And I just wouldn't take it to heart. And what I'm saying is like, I'll post something like, "Hey, I would love advice about working. I'm an American. I'd love advice about working with blah, blah, blah." And I remember people would comment, and they were not helpful. There were sometimes people would have to state like, "Oh, I've been English teaching for 20 years. It's horrible now in Barcelona, and I can't believe you're trying to charge that much." Like, I was getting like really weird responses. And so I'm not saying that's going to happen to you, but just be aware that not everybody is having a great experience in life. And sometimes they take that out they project it out to the world. And so that's why I'm saying, like, don't let the fear and what some of these people are talking about in the Facebook groups dictate whether or not you want to make your move to that place. You should really ask people like Chase, like myself, like people that have actually been there, that are that have gone through the process, and not just like a random person. Like, yes, make connections with random people that you feel like you resonate with, but not with like negative people who are just going to tell you all the negative things, because there's another side to that.
Yeah. I mean, those Facebook groups are like so useful in so many ways. And when we lean on them, my wife and I definitely lean on them. Like she's on Facebook and she'll use the groups, English speakers in Spain, or, like expats in Valencia was a really good one for us in Valencia, and to ask questions and stuff. But that is a huge caveat here. Like, you have to be very intentional about the questions that you ask, and you have to have some thick skin, because the people that lurk around in there are like the homeowners association people that are just like ready to tell you to get off their lawn. And it can be really brutal. And like, we joke sometimes, like we'll ask questions like, we just spent 6 months in Italy, and there was one of these groups in the place that we were living in. And we would be like, let's humorously watch this unfold. Like, we have a question we want to ask. How fast until we get that person who's just like, has nothing but vitriol for you, and just wants to like tell you'll say, "Hey, I'm curious, and like, I want to get this residency permit, and I've read that I need the codice fiscale, and that I have to go to the Entrate building to do that in downtown. Do you think that's correct?" And you'll get somebody that'll be like, "You'll never get it. The line's too long. I wouldn't even bother. Like, go back home." And you're like, that's not what I asked. Like, your comment is useless to me. Or they'll say something, that's like totally not useful. But diamond in the rough, you always get somebody who's willing to help. And so you just have to be willing to wade through some of that. But I think it's great advice to like call out. There's two things there. Like, one is like, leverage the Facebook groups, because they are a great source of information. Just go in with your like, thick skin on, and be ready to wade through some stuff that's like not so useful.
But that's the thing, is like most people that are planning their move abroad, they fall off. And I talk about this I have an abroad in a year masterclass, which I'd love to invite any of you who are listening to.
Yeah. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's basically like I've learned so much from the past 7+ years of living abroad. And so I have this free masterclass, which you can do like live Q&A on there too. It's a fun hangout, but I'm sharing some like key things that are definitely going to help you make this happen. But like in there, there's some really interesting things that I share about like what not to do, what to do. Most people fall off at the research phase. So like they'll go into these Facebook groups, and it's like so much information, and or you're like Google searching and article searching. But the thing is you have a very specific situation. Like, think about my situation. Father passed away. We can't really leave yet because husband is getting the passport. Some other thing might have come up like, oh, we want to buy property and go in on the golden visa in Spain. Oh, well, guess what? That just went away. It's like you have so many different things for your specific situation, and you can't really just find that out from like an article or a Google search. Like, you're going to have to really talk to people who have done it so that you really know what approach you should go with. But a lot of people fall off in the research phase because they get into analysis paralysis. It's like information overload, and then they say, "Oh, I'm just going to do this next week. Like, I'm going to spend more time next week or next month." And then it turns into a month, and then it turns to months. And then you just say, "Oh, I'm going to move abroad in 2 years." And then it never really happens. And so that's why it's so important to like have support, talk to people who've actually done it, like talk to an expert who can put together a plan for you. And that's kind of what I'm doing in the Move Overseas Now Academy. Is people can actually ask me questions. Like, there's 6 months of coaching, and we look at your specific situation, and we're like, "Yep, that's a pathway. Look at your finances, look at your values, your goals. And also it's like a mindset thing. Like if again, that thick skin part is huge. Like you're going to receive some negativity. Like one of my students just texted me the other day. She goes, I was in a Facebook group and there's all these people now talking crap about Spain, saying it's getting super expensive. Somebody even said like communism is taking over. I'm like, what? What group are you in? And she's like, Shawna, should I be concerned? Like, cause she sent me a voice note because she has the coaching and she's doing her scouting trip next week. So I'm like helping her prep for that. She'll be down by you actually by Valencia. And I was assuring her, like, look, inflation, just like every country, like there is inflation, but you're not going to see some like crazy increase. And still, Spain is so much cheaper than living in America. Like, don't worry. People are just blowing smoke. It's probably one of those people who doesn't want people to come in because, yes, a lot of locals are being pushed out of their local areas because of the golden visa. People were buying up a lot of property. And now, unfortunately, locals have been needing to leave or they stay with their parents longer. Did you know that? That like before, I think the average in EU, like people were 26 and they were still that's when they were leaving their homes of their parents. And Spain is up to 30. Like people are staying in their homes till like 30 with their parents. And they're saying that it could be attributed to the golden visa that was in Spain, which was allowing people to buy property and kind of take up all the land and the homes and increase the value of the real estate market. But I don't know. It's all
I'm skeptical. Like I think if you look at the data, it's like actually the number of visas that were given is like really hard to imagine those small number of individuals misplace such a large percentage of people. If you look around the world, like I've been traveling nomadically now for 2 years. I left Spain 2 years ago and have been like traveling through Europe. Every single place I go to, everyone's singing the same tune on multiple continents. Like, oh, if prices are crazy and it's because of digital nomads and remote workers. I've heard that like a million times. I'm like, it's everywhere. Like inflation is everywhere. So yeah, in some places, like there's some microcosms where it's like, okay, obviously this had a big impact. But I think in a lot of cases, it's like, inflation is real, man. And the prices are up. Like when I was living in Valencia, we were paying 800 euros a month for like a sweet downtown center city apartment with a huge terrace. It was amazing. And like that same apartment now is like more than twice as much. But if I look at the cost of living for something comparable in a pretty sweet city in America, I'd budget twice as much as that just for that rent or mortgage.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you in partnership with my friends over at Lamont & Co. If you're planning a retreat, offsite, or group gathering of any kind this year, I highly suggest tapping into their extensive knowledge and experience to help you find the best possible venue for your event. I work with Kim, who has become my trusted advisor when it comes to planning any event around the world, and she's literally saved me hundreds of hours of work and has located venues I never would have found on my own. She even provides me with budget breakdowns and cost estimates for each location I'm interested in and negotiates contract terms on my behalf, all for free. If it sounds too good to be true, I thought the exact same thing at first, but I can assure you this is the real deal. Lamont is paid by the venues, not by you, so there's no cost, risk, or obligation here. So do yourself a favor and contact Lamont via the link in the show notes when you're planning your next group, retreat, offsite, or gathering. Before we dive back into the rest of the interview, I have a small favor to ask of the audience. If you are enjoying this episode and getting some value out of it, then please follow these very simple instructions. Step 1, pick up your phone. I'll give you a second. Step 2, leave a 5-star review for About Abroad. That's it. That's all I'm asking. It takes about 2 seconds. Of course, it is completely free to you, and it is the best possible way to support myself, the show, and everyone working on About Abroad behind the scenes. The funny thing is that there are thousands of people tuning into this show every single week, but we are very likely to only get a few reviews by industry standards, and reviews are the most impactful way that you can show support for the show. So if you have the time, please do so. And either way, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
So we're dancing around some stuff here that if you're up for it, I would love to get into, because like your whole thing is you help Americans permanently move abroad. Like that is what you're known for by your entire following. And you help them with multiple countries, not just Spain. We've talked a lot about Spain so far, but you're helping people with like moving to countries that are like both in Europe and in Latin America, and providing that coaching, which if anybody listens to this show, if you've been listening for a while, you know I'm a huge advocate of like outsource your weaknesses, man. Like, and this is a weakness, I promise you. If you've never moved abroad, this is a muscle that you can't really flex yet. And so I'm all about like hiring a personal trainer and whoever that may be, someone to help you get there, someone to hold you accountable, show you the ropes, have those conversations, and crush the fear mongering that you'll come across inevitably. And Shawna is an awesome example of that. So what I would like to propose to you, I'm putting you on the spot here, but so you can say no and we'll just edit this out. But could we maybe go through like just some like very high level overview of like a couple countries that you cover in your coaching and courses to like give people an idea of maybe some of your favorite places that you're kind of seeing your clients move to?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm so excited that you asked because yeah, I mean, I'm all about this is my core, and I'm excited that all of you are listening because you are being resourceful right now. The successful move abroaders are people that are resourceful, that are not trying to start from zero by saying, with their pride, I'm just going to figure everything out on my own. Like that will take you hundreds of hours to binge watch all of these podcast episodes, man. Basically, you're being resourceful. That's like number one. And like learning from people that have already done this because they're going to fast track. They've already sifted through the BS articles. They've kind of, and like myself, I have guides in the Move Overseas Now Academy. I also have video lessons that literally tell you exactly how to apply for all of these different countries visas. So right now there's 8 countries in there. So I've got Panama, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Mexico, which are the top ones. And I chose countries that are going to fulfill a couple things. There's either pathways to permanent residency and citizenship, most of them. The only one, so it depends on what visa we're talking about. Like, for example, the Colombia Digital Nomad visa has no clear pathway to permanent residency. So I have when we're working together too, like you don't just get access to my course, which has 12 modules from getting started to what this takes to what's your vision in life and how are you going to keep yourself motivated throughout this process that's really hard, to visa and citizenship strategies. There's also strategies that you guys don't probably know about. You could try to go in on citizenship by descent. So if you have ancestors that come from EU countries, specifically EU, that's great because if you can get your citizenship in 1 to 2 years, like from a grandparent or a great grandparent, or a parent, it depends on the country. You can live there, you can reside in any EU country, and then you don't have to apply for visas because you could just move there. You could literally move to any country. Like, so I'm getting my Czech citizenship through my grandfather, right? Fun fact, he was a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You know the movie that's out right now? I mean, it's probably not out anymore because it was like limited release, One Life. Did you hear about it?
No, I didn't see it, but I'm like the absolute worst when it comes to like movies and songs and like I'm like the last person on earth to find out that it's out. So it's not surprising.
I'm the same. I only go to the movies when it's like documentary or something very special. Basically, Schindler, we know who Schindler is. He saves 10,000 Jewish children in Poland in his factory. Been there, by the way. That's incredible. There's another man who did a big operation, but he saved Czech Jewish children. His name was Sir Nicholas Winton. I got to meet him in 2015 in his home in England. He was 105. There's a movie out about him, and of the 669 Czech children that he saved, one of them was my grandfather, and then the other one was my great uncle.
No way.
Yes. It's crazy.
Wild.
It's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
And they passed you a passport down through the bloodline. That's amazing.
Right. Well, here's the thing. It's like, I don't know, with these historical events, and I'm sure all of you have such an interesting history with your family. Like, I've always felt a big call to like go explore. That's why I've always loved Europe so much, is because I knew that they were from there. And I've visited their homes where they were taken, like where the Germans took one of their brothers who was actually Christian. So my great grandparents, everybody perished in the concentration camps. My great grandma Erna and Pavel Meisel, who were from Prague. We're from Brno, which is south. It's the southern part of Czechoslovakia. They actually adopted a Christian boy. They took him to church every Sunday. Like, they were so respectful of his faith. They wanted to just raise him as such a, like, they just wanted to raise him and be respectful of his faith. The Nazis came in and took him. So, like, I went to the house where that happened, and I went with my great uncle. This was like 2015. So I've done all of the historical things that, and it kind of like walked. I've kind of like walked to the route and been to the train station where they last saw their parents, where there's now a statue of the parents holding their hand up and the train leaving. It's really, you have to go to Prague and see this kind of stuff because it's really hardcore. That's why I have such a pull, and I'm so excited for people to be able to get their citizenships, because a lot of these countries have opened up the route for you to go get your citizenship if you qualify. I tried this in 2015, 2016 for Czech Republic. They didn't have it available. It opened up in 2019. So that's the other thing, is we could have looked maybe like 10 years ago, and these things are constantly changing. And so that's why I'm like, stay updated. But how are you going to stay updated when you've got like 20 gajillion other things you're doing with life, family? And that's kind of why I created the Move Overseas Now Academy, because people get lifetime access to the course. So it's a course, and then there's 6 months of Slack coaching support. So it's basically voice memo. Like, I literally have responded to some voice memos just before this podcast. People are sending me like 5-minute questions, like background and like questions. And then I get back to them either by voice or by text. And so, yeah, you can also do the 6-month coaching where we can apply for your citizenship by descent. We can apply for these different visas. But yeah, your question is like, what countries are in there? So I told you the Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, and Mexico. Those have great ones. There's passive income visas. There's student visas. Pretty much all the countries have student visas. And then in Europe, the first 4 that have been uploaded for that is Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy. But I'm releasing more. Each month I'm going to release a new country. It's a lot of work, the recording part. And then obviously I have 2 other businesses. But I'm planning on releasing a total of 15. So you're going to have a lifetime access and then yearly updates for each of these countries, which would be nice. So for example, the Spain, I have golden visas mentioned in there. Golden visas are basically where you invest in property or you invest in like a startup or something else, and you can get citizenship. So, but Spain's just went away. So that one used to be a really good route for people. You just had to spend 500K just. I know it's a lot of money, but you can bring your whole family and you can get your permanent residency right away. So like things are constantly changing, and that's where I'll keep everybody updated. And like Greece, for example, that's also in the course. Greece just doubled theirs to like from 250K to 500K euro. If you buy property, you get permanent residency. So things are constantly changing. So what else do I talk about in there? Well, there's a lot of digital.
Can I interject? Can I interject real quick, Shawna? Because I think there's one thing that's very interesting with the golden visa. I learned this in a conversation with someone just a few weeks ago, that they were under the this is something we need to make sure people understand about golden visas. So people hear that number and they think, oh, all I have to do is invest in a €500,000 home or €250,000 home. That's cash. Like, yeah, that doesn't, like, so a lot of people are thinking like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, that's standard regular house price here, but no, you got to show up with the cash. You can't mortgage that. So when you see golden visa, you got to show up with the cash for that. And so presumably a lot of people listening are like, okay, that I'm probably not in that position. Maybe you are. If you are, congrats, you rock. If you're not, if you're like the rest of us and you can't do that, are you seeing a lot of your clients move towards digital nomad visas, or are there other options? Like, I'm kind of asking a very broad question across 8 countries that you have in your module, but just kind of like trending, like what are your clients gravitating towards, and what does that demographic generally look like if you have a general demographic?
Yeah, so this is basically I support people that are retiring, that are remote workers, that have their own business or have dreams of being a remote worker. or starting their own business that want to then qualify for digital nomad visas or passive income visas. Because here's the other misconception, like the passive income visa is typically known as like a retirement visa, but you don't have to be retired to apply for these. So like the Panama one, yes, you need to be retired, but it's like so little. It's it's $1,000 a month. So that's why a lot of retirees love that one. But there's other ones that, for example, the Spain has the non-lucrative visa, which is technically passive income. What do we mean by passive income? You're supposed to show like, your dividend, what are you making from your dividends, from your investments, from your rental property, this type of thing. But the thing about Spain is they take savings. So like actually supporting a lot of people in the Move Overseas Now Academy who they're like, also I support people that are just done. They're like, I'm done with corporate. I want to take a sabbatical. I want to chill out for a year. There's a lot of people that are wanting to do that. And then while they're on the ground in like Spain, Portugal, Italy, France, wherever you want to move to, like they will start their online business slowly, but they want to take their time. There's also that type of person. But I have one couple who just got approved for the non-lucrative visa. They're planning on taking a year off just because they're like over the hustle and bustle. And they take lump sum. Spain takes savings. So like you only need to show 28,800 euro for the first year in a bank account that's here in the US, and you'll get approved. Like it's pretty crazy. And they didn't even ask for like their appointment in LA. On the website says they will check tax returns. They didn't even check tax returns. Like it's pretty crazy. Like so there's a lot of different strategies you can use to kind of come in. And then a lot of people will come in, let's say on the non-lucrative visa, and they'll like pivot to a work visa. So like I think one of the main things is like understanding, like inventory your life. And I teach this in the academy. There's the sections are made in a way so that you're not just jumping straight into the visas, because if you jump straight into the visas and start reading these articles and you're not clear of your vision, you haven't done a proper accounting of, okay, where am I at? Like, how much am I making in my online job? Or do I have rental property? Like really take inventory of all these different things, finances, your life, your habits. Like, are you even built or wired for success? Like, are you scheduling productive time to do this every day? But once you've gone through that part of the course, then you can start looking at things like, okay, student visa. Maybe you decided, okay, my finances, I've got 20K saved. Okay, well, I'm not gonna be able to do the Portugal passive income visa because I'm not making passive income. I just have a savings. But oh yeah, and then Spain takes savings, but I only have 20K. Okay, I won't qualify for that. Crap, what am I left with? Well, if you're making something from your remote job, maybe you'll be able to go for a digital nomad visa. But a lot of these countries, like it is pretty steep. Like Greece is 3,500 euro a month that you have to show. And like for people that are just starting out with remote work or freelancing, like that might be a lot of money. And so I don't want people to get discouraged either. There's other routes, and Portugal as well. Like it's typically 4 times the minimum wage in these countries. So Portugal is 820 times 4. So what is
like
that?
3,200, 3280.
Yeah. So like 3280. You need to show 3280, which is still kind of around the same thing, like similar to Greece. So some people are having a hard time showing those. So what's another route? Let's do a student visa. Most of these countries,
go take some language classes,
Yeah, Italy, you can do cultural language classes. Spain, you can do the same thing. You can do a year program. There's masters. So this is what I did. Find a business school that, and I say business school. Let's say you want to like learn marketing or web design. There are literally programs in Spain and even in Portugal, all over the world, that you can find for under 4K. So like 4K for the whole year. That's what I did. I did entrepreneurship and innovation. It was at a private business school in Barcelona in the town of Gracia. It's called INSA, INSA, INSA Business School. Super cheap masters. Now we're saying quote unquote masters. Don't think when you're thinking, oh, I don't want to go back to school and do this like MBA. And in Spain, they call them master. It's not what you're thinking. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in class all day and I'm going to have these crazy homework assignments. Like, it was very manageable. I was working the whole time. Now, what I mean by that is I was like starting my freelance career. I was starting to do social media management for this like English school on the side. I was teaching English. I was coaching beach volleyball classes on the beach in Barcelona because I played D1 volleyball. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, sweet. I know. I didn't know that.
So you can like do these other side hustle things in these countries, and don't I'm not a legal expert, but it doesn't have to be official. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to tell you how you can just get by. And so I wouldn't like, of course, all the blogs you're reading online are going to be like, student visa says you technically can't work, but you can have an internship for 30 hours a week. Okay, great. They pay you, but that's not going to be enough to survive. So what are you going to do? Okay, are you a guitarist? You could teach guitar lessons and charge 20 euro an hour to like little kids in France or Spain. Like, these people will hire you. Parents will pay for after school programs. You go to their house. There's different platforms you can go on. And now you're kind of in this like really fun like job that doesn't even seem like work. And you're just like showing people how to do this thing you know how to do. And that's kind of what started me into this whole freelance remote work. Like, you start with the little things. Like, what are you currently good at? Hobbies. And you can just expand it later to something bigger, like creating an agency. But getting that experience and getting through those initial like imposter syndrome or like just figuring out how to have some sort of stability. So that's what I would suggest for like a student visa. And that's what I did. And then after a year, you can pivot to a work visa. So that's the other thing. Is a lot of these countries you just come in on like a student visa and you can later pivot to a different type of visa. Or let's say you come in on the student visa and, or even the non-lucrative in Spain, technically you're not supposed to work on it, but hey, people are doing it.
That's how I got into Spain. I used the non-lucrative. It was before so 7 years ago. It was before the digital nomad visa existed. And in fact, like, I mean, it's called the non-lucrative visa, literally like you're not supposed to make money visa, but they were letting remote workers use it. And I even had to get like a letter from my company saying this is how much money he's making every month. And so it's like the consulate's like explicitly asking for the documentation that says that you're doing something other than what the visa was designed for. That was a different time. It's not really as we know, that's not the case anymore. The point is though, and it's kind of like, it's in line with what you're saying, is like most people that I know, if I think about their situation, they could figure out a way to do exactly what you and I have done, which is like, there is some path there if you really desire this. And and that alone is like, if you're listening and wanting to do this, I mean, I literally get emails every single day from people saying this is what they want to do, but there's always a but. And, we started out by saying the but was maybe your aging parents. But for a lot of people, it's the but is, pets or your job, or you have a mortgage, or you're just about to get that raise or that promotion, or you have kids. And I'm like, I know somebody for each one of those excuses that has decided, nope, this is what I really want to do, and I'm going to make it happen. And what you're telling me is there are a plethora of options to get you in the door. And if you can just get your foot in the door for a year, which almost all of us can, then you're set. You'll pivot, you'll figure it out, and you'll learn and you'll grow, and it'll be an awesome experience. So like, you got to do it if you want to do it.
Exactly. And like kind of what you said about, I mean, you'll figure it out. And I always say this, like, you have a solution to everything. It just takes success equals committed action plus courage. Like, it literally just takes you doing the same thing. You're committed to, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours a day, and then courage because it's scary. And like all these excuses, that I have it covered in the academy too. Like, so after the country specific visas, which are all the passive income visas, student visas, digital nomad visa, golden visas, and investment opportunities. For example, in Colombia, you can invest 200K in property. So buy yourself a home and you'll get permanent residency. Pretty cool. Yeah. And then Panama has another really interesting like property investment one that's similar to that. But there's just like so many different options. So I just wouldn't don't ever say that there's not a solution, because there is. But after that, you know, then we decide, once you look at the visas and your pathway and like, are we going to do citizenship by descent? Then you can actually plan what country you're choosing. And there's a whole framework I have for like choosing it based on the exercise you did before, which is, what are your values? What's kind of like very imperative for you to have, you know, looking at your finances. Then you get to choose the destination, and then you get to go on a scouting trip. I actually have people that haven't even gone on scouting trips. They're just like
Wow.
so gung ho.
They're just going.
Yeah. Seriously, like it's up to you. Like I never went to Spain before I went to Spain, and I was going in on a student visa, and I absolutely loved it. Like I kind of liked the surprise. It was pretty cool. And then then there's the applying part. Like you get to apply at the consulate on your own. If you want lawyer recommendations, I have those, but that's kind of a part of the coaching, is I'll walk you through literally how you can apply at the consulates on your own. And the cool part is, a lot of these countries I chose, you can apply online. So a lot of the Latin American ones, you can apply online for the digital nomad visas, which is like crazy. I'm like, what?
That is wild.
You can also apply in person. And a lot of these, you can go to the country on a tourist visa and then apply once you're there, which is really cool. Like Greece, you can do that. Costa Rica, Colombia, Spain, you can do that. Spain, if you apply for the digital nomad visa in Spain, you get approved for 3 years, versus if you apply at a consulate, you only get approved for 1 year.
Ah, interesting. In Greece, I know you get like upon application. So you go to Greece, you apply there in Greece, you automatically get, like, while you're waiting, which the waiting could take months, you get like an automatic like extension on your visa. Is that your understanding as well? And B, does that also happen in that situation in Spain?
Yeah, like most of these countries, when you're waiting to get approved, because they're like super backed up, because everybody's trying to come in on these digital nomad visas, you're still allowed to travel. Like they'll give you some sort of temporary permit until you get your like official residency permit. So yeah, that's typically what's happening.
That's pretty sweet. Like that's a pretty cool thing. Like if you really just wanted to be like, like throw the papers in the air, be like, I'm going, and you just like, I'm going to go and figure it out when I get there. Like worst case scenario, you apply and you submit your stuff, and then like, okay, you got to wait for 6 months. Cool. I'm in Europe for 6 months, or I'm in Panama for 6 months, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, the general gist here is like I would say there's like 3 key takeaways for me. The first one is like, hire a professional. And that's not just to plug Shawna here because we're talking to Shawna. It's just like, my experience has been, I've applied for visas in a handful of countries over the years. And I have always regretted when I didn't hire someone. And I've always been very thankful when I did. And I've even gone through the same visa process multiple times. And so therefore thinking, oh, I know what to do. And then realize like, oh, damn, I should have hired somebody, like even like the third time around, because you need someone to help you like grease the wheels, who's up to date on all the information. Government websites are out of date. Like just get someone who's in the know. So that's my first thing. The second thing, I'll say there's actually just really 2 main things here. The second thing is, if there's a will, there's a way. Like there's so many different options available now. It's never been easier to move abroad. Countries are literally looking at you as like a SaaS company, a software company looks at like users. Like you want to get people in the top of the funnel. They want you to come. So they're looking for a way to bring you into their country to spend your hard-earned money from back home in their country. So the options are there. If you feel the urge to go do this, like now's the time. And just keep those two things in mind. I think you can live this like zesty life that you're called to do if you feel the need to.
Yeah. And then the other thing would be, there's a solution to everything. I know I've said that, but I always hear pets all the time, and the logistics side of things in healthcare. Like, guys, I'm still paying for my, even though I'm finishing things up because of my dad here in the US, I'm still paying for my private health insurance plan in Spain. It's 75 euros a month. There's no copays. There's no deductibles. I have a herniated disc. Like,
Same.
what? Oh, high five.
Yeah, high five on the herniated disc. Can I tell a story on that? Yeah, it's in my lumbar. Let me tell you a fun, like, totally related to this exact same thing. My wife and I went from paying almost $1,000 a month in healthcare coverage in the US to paying, which included like massive copays, massive co-insurance. Like we needed to set aside like $2,000 a month. I felt like to be able to like feel comfortable that we were insured. Maybe it was more like 1,500. I'm going back a little bit, but anyway, let's just say that's the number. Now we have $115 a month for full coverage. No questions asked, no co-insurance, no nothing. And I also have herniated disc in my back, and I had to go get multiple doctor's appointments, MRIs, physical therapy, everything. Literally didn't cost me anything. And people will say, "Oh, but you probably had to wait for forever." No, I didn't. I made an appointment in the app on my phone. I had an appointment the next day. I got the MRA like a week later. Physio setting up the next day. These things that we're scared of are usually like opportunities to thrive and to live in a better way. So
I agree.
Anyway, yeah.
What do you have? I have DKV. That's my insurance in Spain. What's yours?
I have Aegon, Aegon. And I can, if anybody's moving to Valencia, I will just give a free shout out to my insurance agent, Natalia. She's awesome. This is another thing, like service is amazing. I WhatsApp with her. Like I just send her a text, be like, "Hey, how does this coverage work here," or whatever. And I'm covered throughout Europe, actually, and some back in the US as well. So like, yeah, there's some amazing aspects that we don't talk about a lot. They're not, insurance isn't a sexy topic, but it's a real thing that like actually benefits me day to day here.
Oh, you need to send me Natalia's info, by the way. That sounds awesome.
I will do that. Yeah.
The pet thing too, just because I know you brought it up, and I know then we'll wrap it up. But the pet thing is, so many people are so scared. I've had multiple clients come to me like, I cannot send my dog on a plane. Like they can't come with me physically, like in the cabin. So I'd have to put them underneath, where all the bags go. And they're like, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, there's a solution. Go on a cruise, take that transatlantic cruise that goes across to England. And then you can put your dog on there. Like there's always a solution. And it's going to be maybe a little bit more expensive than getting a flight. But yeah, there's a solution. And you'll keep it under $2,000 because you got to buy a ticket for yourself and you have to pay for the boarding for your cat or your dog. But it's really cool. It's really nice little area. You get to play with your dogs and your cats during certain hours while you're on the cruise. And then you get to have like a cruise. Like what?
Yeah. Not a terrible way to move abroad. As someone that's moved around the world with their Siberian Husky, which seems so stupid in a lot of people's minds, including mine sometimes. But like there is absolutely a way to do it. Like I was told so many times, "Oh, you can't take a dog of that size, abroad or whatever." And I've moved, literally he's crisscrossed the equator and the Atlantic multiple times, and we've worked through it. So like, it's, again, like if you want to do it, there's lots of excuses not to, but there's, you got one life to live and you got to scratch that itch if you need to.
Yeah. And the other biggest things I would say that I'm helping people with is the financial planning. I have 10 bonus experts in the course as well. So like you'll get interviews that I've hosted from US expats tax professionals. So that's in there. And they have financial planners that will help you qualify for these passive income visas or the digital nomad visas. And then also have like real estate and rentals trainings, departure while in country and integrating trainings, as well as like remote work, business trainings, and teaching English abroad. Also, don't fall into the trap of buying a TEFL for any of those who want to teach English. Don't buy a TEFL from the US. Ask me, I'll send you a really good one that's only 100 euros versus 1,200 in the US. So yeah, I'll show you like the network I have and like how you can basically not fall into the America trap and get things for a lot cheaper, to be quite honest. So yeah, excited to see all of you guys.
Cherry on top of an already awesome conversation. I know I got to let you go, so we're going to wrap it up there, but thank you so much for all the information. I love all the content you put out. People should definitely connect with you on social media and access the links that we mentioned. So while people are listening, remind them where they can connect with you socially, and also like any links to your courses, websites, anything like that. We'll place all of these in the show notes so people can access it with a quick click.
Yeah, so you can watch my Abroad in a Year masterclass and take part in that. That's where I share all my secrets and strategies from the past 7 years. So basically, there's a lot more that I'll go into that we didn't touch on this interview. So you can find that in the show notes. And then if you want to just directly enroll in the academy, I will drop that as well in the show notes. I'll actually give you guys 35% off just for being here and listening till the end. And I'll throw in the 6 months free coaching to basically ask me any living abroad question. So basically it's like, send me your documents, ask me about this official translation you had to get, or who I should recommend that you go with, anything, pets, relocation, starting your business. I also coach people on how to start their businesses. So we can do all of that in the coaching. And then all of the trackers and the to-do lists, the bonus resources I have, I'll throw that in too. So excited to see you guys potentially in there.
What an epic offer. Thank you so much. We'll have all of that information in the show notes. So contact Shawna there. And yeah, I hope everyone learned a lot today. I certainly did. And also just love your energy and passion for this space. It resonates in the work that you do. So keep up the awesome work there. And I hope to see you in España soon. We've met virtually so many times. We need to connect in real life. So looking forward to that.
We will see you. We will see you maybe like September.
Looking forward to it. Let's do it. All right. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.